2, 3. Awesome. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Soul Sartorialist. On this episode, I have a gentleman that I have the utmost respect for. He's driven. He's a Marylander, and he's just a good guy. As I've known him from over, I think, decade at this point.
Yeah.
Everybody, welcome in Aaron McKay. How you doing, big brother?
Good, man. Thanks so much. How are you?
Good, man. I know you're on the West Coast and I'm on the East Coast, and for you to want to get up on a Saturday, it's nice to see you, man.
Yeah, you as well. I'm always up early, so I guess the East Coast time, I'm just biologically, like, that's what I stay on. So
True.
Yeah.
Man, well, the reason why we have you on this day, and guys, the reason we're talking to Aaron is because he is one of the most inspirational people that I know on the planet. His work ethic, the value that he provides to the circles that he's in, just the overall human being he's a great example of what a person that you should follow. And in the world we live in, there's not enough great examples on the media, and we want to present you guys with people that we have the highest level of respect. Just to kind of give you an idea of who Aaron is, I'm going to go down some of these accomplishments because this dude is legit, okay? So a couple of things. You have an MBA, is that correct, Aaron?
Yep.
You also have a master of, is that computer science?
It's a Master of Science in Information Systems. Yeah.
Okay, so a Master's of Science in Information Systems, MBA. You went to the prestigious George Washington University. You went to also University of Washington, the Foster School of Business, the GW University School of Business. You also went to University of Maryland. You got a bachelor's, the prestigious as well, Robert H. Smith School of Business. Man, you like a lot of business stuff, man. And then also, the current title that you have is, I'm pulling this up right now, guys, because he has so many things. Senior partner technology strategist, AI services and transformation. Let's start from the core of who Aaron is. Aaron, kind of give the audience who you are. I know who you are, but kind of talk about where you're from and kind of your background.
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Tacoma Park, Maryland. Lived across the DMV most of my life, and only just recently, back in 2019, moved out here to Seattle, Washington. I live in a suburb of Seattle called Bellevue. Really fast-growing area. Highly recommend a visit. And yeah, so like starting out in Maryland, I lived between Baltimore and DC. My dad lived closer to DC. My mom lived up in Ellicott City. And so, I kind of bounced between the two, very, very different areas for anyone who's been out that way.
For sure.
And so I kind of split my time between Prince George's County and Howard County, where I went to school. So that's where I met you. And, we got to know each other. So, yeah, so just kind of seeing the two drastic changes between those regions, it's really been helpful to shape my mindset and like how I see the world, how I view dealing with people of different cultures and backgrounds, and so yeah, I think that's really shaped kind of my path going forward.
For sure, man, and I'm very similar to you. Like I said, we both grew up in HOCO, as they call it, but originally I came from Baltimore in the 1990s, so. One of the very few African Americans in the Howard County, because in the 90s and the early 2000s, it was growing in 2000, but in the 90s there were not a huge amount of African Americans, specifically in the area in Howard County that we grew up in. And the same thing, my dad's from inner city Baltimore. I went to elementary school in inner city Baltimore, but then the transition to a very affluent suburb of Howard County, totally different worlds, totally different environments, and no doubt I grew up in more the Korean side of Howard County, where there's like all Korean food and things of that nature. They even call it Koreatown now. It's literally called Koreatown now.
K-Town, yeah. Oh, they have a sign now? Oh,
they have a sign, and it's like a whole store town, right?
We all knew it, but we didn't have a sign back then.
For sure. So now it's called officially Koreatown. So me and you growing up in predominantly diverse areas, but also being men of color, coming from black cities, DC, Washington, DC, Tacoma Park is a huge African American community. And totally different, depending on what part of Washington, D.C. you're in, totally different world than suburban Howard County. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I always tell people out here, I was like, I grew up in the sticks, but cornfields, and like our high school was cornfields, and
literally, literally.
Before they built the high school in there, it was all just corn, and so growing up there, and then like a different city and bouncing around. Even Columbia is drastically different than Ellicott City back
For sure.
then. Yeah.
For sure. Columbia was even like it's slightly a little bit cooler, right? A little bit cooler.
Mhm.
The city's
More
more like
metropolitan
yeah,
versus rural. Yeah.
for sure. For sure. Our high school was very, very, very rural. So
Yeah.
growing up in a different environment, seeing two different type of worlds, Washington, D.C.,
Mhm.
Howard County, Baltimore, Howard County. And then, excuse me, guys, allergies. You had a pivotal part in your life, especially as men of color. There's a lot of different perceptions of us, right? As a
Mhm.
group of people, as a specific demographic. Talk
Mhm.
about a situation that happened very early in your childhood that shaped the man, the very successful, very driven, very accomplished man that you are today.
Yeah. So for my dad, it was all about school, right? Education was the most important thing. You could do anything you set your mind to. That was kind of something we were always told, and that was heavily ingrained in us at an early age. We went to school back then. I would say it was 98% white in the school system, and I learned from an early age how tracked that school system is, in especially if you start out in a certain level. For me, I was always trying to be put in gifted and talented classes along with my two older sisters, and so but it wasn't just a given. We had to fight for that position, right? We had to fight to be in those classes, and so my dad made sure of it, right? He wrote letters. He came to the school, all the way from PG County, came to Ellicott City, and said, I need my kids in these classes because they're not slow. They're not, whatever the school, the tests say they are, right? Like they need to be put in these classes because they're going to be tracked all the way through high school. And that, impacts what college you go to, if you go to college at all. Right. And so, all three of us, we all went to a master's school, right? We all got higher education. And, if it weren't for that being a priority, we probably wouldn't be where we are today, right? So that's something that I take with me, and will instill in everybody I meet, right? Like education's important. It can be the difference between being successful and not. So it's really really key.
For sure. And no doubt that level of advocacy for you as a young person, especially for me as well. I came from a Baltimore City school system in elementary school to Howard County. Now, the funny thing is, my dad is a very old school brother. He's in the 70s now, right? And he
Mhm.
was very serious about me learning math. He taught me the old school way, carry the one, that type of thing.
Mhm.
When I
Mhm.
initially first came to Howard County, the suburbs, I was killing the kids in math. I was destroying them. I'm in
Yeah.
math because I learned the old school way. There's different ways,
Right.
and even now there's even different ways to learn math as well.
Mhm.
And as I got through the school system, because my dad's a single father, he raised me and my sister, but he just couldn't be as on hands-on as as your father could be. Because and he's
Mhm.
also blue collar as well. So
Mhm.
he's working 12, 13, 14 hours in the cold and in the Northeast where we're from. And
Mhm.
so he's like, and he's also is like in his mid to late 40s and 50s. He's tired.
Yeah.
So there's only
Yeah.
so much advocacy he's going to do. He's like, the advocacy I'm going to give you is don't mess up in school. If you do, I'm going to go upside your head. So
Yeah.
that kind of, but he in the early part of elementary when he had the energy, he would do that. But unfortunately, I had the opposite experience where they put me in some of the lower tier classes, and because
Right.
of advocacy was strong at first, but if you
Mhm.
don't stay on your children, they will get
Mhm.
put into certain situations. So no
Mhm.
doubt, your life accomplishments that set you up for a roadmap of to where you are today. Um,
Mhm.
Sometimes they say, what is it they say? It's like the bigotry of low expectations people have
Mhm.
of people. So talk
Yeah.
about that. And so you go to high school, you're competitive, so you put yourself in competitive situations. Talk about because you've been to some very prestigious, I'm looking at your stuff here, very prestigious universities. And it's a very, in America, I think it's less than 30% of the American population have master's degrees. I think that is the a number, a
Mhm.
little bit less than 30% of all of American population has a master's degree. So you have
Yeah.
high level degrees. So talk about that. You get into college. Kind of talk us through the college experience because me and you live in the most transformative time in human history with AI and automation, LLMs and all these different things. So talk about your why you pick those subjects. What was your mindset in starting in college?
Yeah, I mean, even before college, I think it started in high school, and that's kind of where I discovered my knack for business, math, science. I'm not great at math, but I'm pretty decent at logic, and so I was able to logic my way through science classes and math classes and do the best I could. I was probably a B minus math student at the AP level, but yeah, but it was something that I think my dad also talked to me about a lot. It was like, business is the way to go, and also combining business with something else to differentiate yourself, right? So for me, it was tech or science. And so I did a lot of engineering internships in high school, and went to Walter Reed Army Institute of Research to do an internship. And that's where I studied biomedical engineering and mechanical engineering. And so that was pretty interesting to me. I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like, I like taking things apart and putting them back together. I would do that with my computer at home, my desktop computer, those big ones. And then
Yes.
I would do it with my video game consoles, and sometimes things wouldn't turn back on.
You
Yeah.
took apart your video game console?
Yeah. My PlayStation 2, I think. Yeah.
That's like, man, the
Yeah.
holy grail. Okay, go ahead, continue.
Yeah, I was curious. I was like, I want to see what's inside this thing. Like, how does it work? And
Okay.
so that's kind of how it started. And then I was also in the applied research lab for I think it was 2 classes in junior year and senior year in the Academy of Finance. And so those 2 classes kind of paved the way for me to learn about how etiquette and business etiquette, presenting yourself and speaking, public speaking, and all of that, and doing impromptu presentations about a subject that you don't know anything about. So those were classes where I got a lot of practice, and led me to applying to business schools. And I applied to UPenn. I applied to University of Maryland, College Park, also UMBC. I didn't get a UPenn.
Yeah.
I went through the interview, but they were like, nah. So didn't get in there, but I did get into UMBC, and also University of Delaware for their, I think it was environmental engineering, and UMBC was mechanical engineering. So didn't end up taking those 2 routes and stayed with the business route, but I focused on entrepreneurship, because I would always come up with ideas when I was a kid. I used to, I don't know if you remember the Dub City cars or whatever with the spinners.
Yeah, come on.
So I used to exactly. I used to break off the rims and then sell them to people in middle school.
Oh, okay.
And they would buy them like $5 or $1 for the rim, so that they could have a spinning rim necklace or whatever. So that's kind of how I started out. And I was thinking, okay, I can take this entrepreneurship thing in a different direction, and let's see where it goes. And then I realized IT is a growth area, and so I should focus on IT, and that's what led me to studying that in my master's programs.
For sure. A lot to go over there, man. You kind of got an idea of entrepreneurship, no doubt. In the world we live in now, entrepreneurship with the I think, honestly, for me, in my personal opinion, in the next 5 to 10 years, there will be an explosion in entrepreneurship, because with AI, even though it will remove some jobs, I think it will level the playing field for small to medium-sized businesses to be more efficient, to be more productive, to be more competitive, and to find ways to fix certain systems that are inherently manual, inherently time intensive. Is that something that you believe as well, Aaron, in your perspective and what you've seen, and just from what your experience has been over the last decade plus being in this kind of attached to this industry?
Yeah. So AI is interesting. It's been around for a long time, previously called machine learning or data science, even statistics. A lot of that plays a role in decision making and the basis of AI. But I would say the real key is creativity. That's the missing link for AI. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's there's a trend with AI where it's like, okay, but where's the creative element? I can tell this is AI. Like I can tell this is just prefabricated or compiled based off of, a spectrum of very nuanced and regulated things, right? But where's the creativity component in combining this thing, and then creating a masterpiece? That's what's missing from AI today, and that's what I think, like you said, there's going to be a boom in entrepreneurs who can bridge those gaps that AI can't, right? And so I think there's going to be like any new technology, right? A lot of things were technology. The printing press was technology, right? Anytime that those things happen, there's going to be a job loss, right? There's going to be also new jobs that come with that. And so there's going to be people who need to regulate AI, who need to, focus on kind of creating guardrails and thinking about those guardrails that are in place. Because if we leave it to AI to create their own AI guardrails, then what are we left with, right? So that's where I see a position for humans to take control. And we call it human in the loop when we discuss that in AI.
For sure. And I see that in my organization as well. There's a lot of organizations that have AI initiatives, right? But they're not applying it correctly, right? They're putting them into projects and they're like, oh, we're just going to throw it, we're going to slap it. No, you have to utilize it effectively, correctly. And you need a human to, like you said, ultimately to balance it out, because fully unregulated or uncontrolled AI, you can do a lot of things. There's been a lot of lawsuits recently with proprietary information and other things. So that's a deep philosophical question that people have about how to appropriately apply it in a way that is equitable, in a way that has some sort of morality. Because there are some companies that are like, you know what, we're just going to do it. Humans don't matter. And you'll see, I think society as a whole is getting to the point where we're like, look, it's going to be, it could be a social revolution in some small ways, right? I'm not saying some crazy French Revolution thing, but more so like, hey, it's a great utility. It's great to be used, but ultimately you need a human to do it, right? It's almost like flying a plane. Yes, most planes are flown through automation to a degree, right? But you still need, certain things do fail, and you need someone like, hey, I got to control this thing.
Somebody's got to land it, right?
So you can't just go like hands up, it's just going to do whatever. You need to have that mentality. I agree with you 100%, Aaron. So getting back to your perspective, entrepreneurship, business, and so I'm just going through this stuff, man, and looking at this, man, like, I mean, specialization in entrepreneurship and information systems. You really have then you have the MBA part. So you have all these different parts. You have all the angles, man. You have all the angles. You made yourself a well-rounded candidate. And then as I look at other parts of your resume here, you get into federal cloud and cognitive technical stuff and AI. And then you did IBM. I mean, you have some huge logos, IBM, Microsoft. Talk about that process. You're an MBA guy. You got all these, you got a master's. Talk about that, the interview part of IBM, legacy organizations that are well-respected logos in the industry. How did you get into such a competitive organization? Obviously, you set yourself up with a great foundation and attaching yourself to so many different parts of the discipline. But talk about that IBM interview process and getting into one of the most well-respected, known organizations in the history of mankind.
Yeah, I think it all ties back to brand and network, right? Like it sounds all good when I put it all together and list it out. But the process itself is really just nurturing the network and building out the brand and who I want to be, how I want to represent myself, and what I want to be known for. And so it kind of started out with my first real job out of high school, where I worked for the National Institutes of Health. And so it mostly started out as a part-time gig. I was a business analyst for the National Library of Medicine in the Office of Computers and Communication Systems. And so that was also kind of my introduction to the tech world. I was down in the basement, the data center, and I became a federal employee at that point, a civilian employee. But yeah, that's kind of where I started learning how things work in the tech industry and also in the office space, right? So I've only really had office jobs. Even in high school, my internship was mostly office. I was an office assistant for Columbia Foundation for like 2 years. And then I joined the National Institutes of Health. My stepmom's sister, my aunt, she worked at the National Library of Medicine. She was like, "Oh, we're looking to hire interns. You do want to apply to this thing?" And I was like, "Okay, sure." I don't really have a resume, but I've done these internships in high school, and so I built out a resume for the first time,
For sure.
and kind of just shaped what my path was, and it was engineering. It was a little bit of business for the Academy of Finance, and and that's kind of how it started. So yeah, I think I lost your visual, but yeah,
I gotta plug in the charger. Give me 1 second. I don't want this thing to
no,
die.
you're good. Yeah, you're good. Yeah, I'll just keep going. Yeah, so it started out in high school, and then led into National Institutes of Health, and um, and that's when I got to really experience uh, working full time towards the end of my university career. Right, so I had a decision to make whether I was going to get into the private sector or stay in the government. I wasn't making much money in the government. I think it was 39,000 a year when I
Jesus.
was graduating. I think it was 22, making 39,000 a
So folks,
year.
also keep in mind, me and Aaron got a little life on us. We both look handsome and young. He's more handsome than me. I'm a little older. I got a little more gray. I look like but we got some. We're fully like into our 30s, right? So that's why 39. Like if you adjust it for today's dollars, but yeah, still low though. Still low. Go ahead.
Yeah. To me, it was low for the things I wanted to do. Right, like I wanted to, like, for me, a job was something that you make money there, and then you can do the things you want to do. And so yeah, I had a decision to make. Am I going to stay at GS? I think it was 7 at the time, or do I leave? Right. So then my stepmom's other sister she was working at IBM for a very long time. I think she worked there for 30 years. And she told me about an opportunity where it was called the Summit Program for recent graduates. And it's this 9-month training program called Global Sales School that you go through, and then another 3 months of technical training if you're going into tech sales. And so I didn't know much about it, but I was like, yeah, let me go for it. Let me try this out. And so I applied, went through the interview loops, and talked about the work that I was doing in undergrad, all the way leading up into my first grad program, which was right out of college at GW. And so that's when I was doing the information systems and coding and all of that. And I created a website for my Turp Jams, which is my music promoting page that I had. And so, yeah, so that process just kind of took me from IBM and then on to the next thing and on to the next thing. But none of it was pre-planned or anything. It's just kind of an opportunity hit, and yeah, I approached it.
I fully want to unpack that as well. So my main question is what I want to do with that is I want to unpack the global sales part. Talk about the interview process, because we want to inspire young guys. How intense was the interview process? How many interviews did you have to do?
I would say I probably went on the same day. I probably went through 4 or 5 interviews. Just kind of went from room to room to room in the office and met with different people. They would ask you different questions, and usually in the interview process for big organizations like that, each interviewer has their own set of topics that they want to cover, right? So that you're not saying the same story over and over again. And so, for different people, I just kind of went wherever the conversation took me. And that's kind of how I get through interviews, is I look at it just as a conversation, like any other conversation. You meet somebody, they have some questions for you, you might have some questions for them, but you want to have that dialogue. And so it makes it less of a lift. Most people get nervous during interviews because, they're like, oh, this person's judging me, but it's like, everyone's judging you, right? And if you approach every single interaction as, this is a potential conversation and I don't know where it'll lead me, we might have something in common, and just keep an open mind like that, it ends up being less intense. Yeah.
Okay. but still 4 to 5 in a day, most people would melt after the second. How did you? I love that thought process you have. Literally, it's just a
Mhm.
conversation, and they'll bring up what they'll bring up. And if you already have the experiences, you've already put in the effort, you've learned.
Mhm.
So these things will naturally come. To me, what I found with interviews, if you overthink it, then you will make it way harder than it needs to be. This is another
Mhm.
human being just like you who's also interviewed for jobs as well, right?
Mhm.
And so, but by the time you got to your fourth or fifth interview, were you worn out though, emotionally or mentally?
No, no.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, I'm a mix between an extrovert and an introvert. There's times where I have like introverted tendencies, but I think on the whole, I enjoy interacting with people. I enjoy talking to people, getting to know them, and so yeah, it was a full day kind of event slash like orientation. It's really just orienting you on what is IBM about, what is the program, the summit program about, what would global sales school be like, and then also seeing if you're a good fit. And so that whole day was we had lunch in between, so it was broken up in a way that didn't feel as intense, like you were constantly being interviewed, but I would say I had fun doing it because it was new for me, right? Like it wasn't government work where every week somebody's retiring. It was like that in the government,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I was like, this is a new opportunity. I kind of interested in it now. I'm even more excited, especially coming off of graduating from GW, and built out my website, got to demonstrate that, and so they liked that I was demonstrating the technical capabilities that I had in a way, and story and the storytelling of it all. I guess they were impressed by that.
Phenomenal. So talk a little bit about Global Sales School. How intense? What sort of modules? What did it do to sharpen you? Because at that point you didn't have you've done sales, but at that level for the enterprise with an organization that has historical pedigree. How intense? How did it shape you as a professional? I'm curious about that.
Yeah. Yeah, so the only selling I really did before that was selling myself, right? Like selling the idea that I could be a good candidate for a certain position. I didn't do much selling for a company, and so from going from an analyst to in the sales part of the business, right? Like that was a big leap for me. And I was also in the program with people who were becoming sales representatives or sales executives, and the route I was on was to be tech sales, so that was more inside sales or enabling, training other people, right? So it was less about, okay, this is the deal we got, let's do some tradables, negotiations, and things like that. But that's what I was trained for. And so I think that was a good experience for me because it got me outside of my comfort zone. And, I always think to myself, like, if I'm uncomfortable, that means I'm learning or I'm growing, right? Like I'm picking up on something that isn't what makes me comfortable, right? So yeah, I took that and I would just went into these different modules where, one week it would be, this is the company, you're given the requirements, the conversation that you kind of need to, what touch points you need to have. But building out the conversation is kind of all yours. And so
Yeah.
every single time we had to meet, we had to do a mock-up sales conversation or sales meeting. And
Okay.
so the sales executives that retired from IBM, but they were still associated with the program, they were the person we were selling to. They were the customer.
And they're legendary.
Oh yeah.
IBM salespeople are literally they've run huge other organizations when they've left
Yeah.
IBM. It's
Yeah.
so huge.
Yeah, 40 years experience. Like these people are the OGs. So yeah, they didn't hold back, and they told us about like the old days in global sales school where they had people's plane tickets lined up outside the door for if
Oh
you didn't
wow.
do well. So they were
Oh
like,
wow.
you're going home. Yeah, they would kick you out of the program if you didn't do well in your sales meeting. Like that's
That's
how
intense.
intense it used to be. It wasn't like that for us. So we were
Okay.
pampered a little. Yeah, we were pampered a bit, but
Okay.
but yeah, you open up the door, you go and roll. Like first you cover assumptions before the meeting, and then once that's covered, he's like, are you done? All right, go outside, come in, and then we're in roll. And so you good morning, so and so, nice to meet you, da, 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 and then go through the whole conversation of, uh, this is what I understand your business is, and this is this, and this is how we can help, this is what we can provide, and then you have to be able to pivot, right, at any point in time in the conversation. You have to be able to objection handle, and they give us a process to objection handling,
Well, talk about
validate.
that, and I'm curious. Can you get into that a
Yeah,
little?
yeah, I don't remember all the steps, but it started out with validating what you heard, right? What they're saying, asking questions, clarifying that you're understanding what they're saying, right? And then from there, you're able to address, their concern, or ask them, about that concern. One that often came up was, oh, IBM's too expensive, right? And so you had to be able to pivot from that conversation, right? That objection, and then rephrase it to where you can alleviate whatever their concern is.
Yeah,
And so that took a lot of practice to be able to say, well, I understand that money is, important to you. You want to save costs. Well, in the long run, you're actually saving more costs by not having the upfront costs of,
excellent.
of
Yeah.
having the equipment, or, infrastructure and all of that. Right. So managing it, there's some costs that are associated to it that, you won't have in the long run. So being able, and then they might say, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And then you have to check in with them after and say, does that kind of alleviate any concern that you have? It's not really scripted, but it's just in the conversation. You want to make sure that you covered the topic that you first were dealing with, so that you can move forward to the next thing. Yeah.
For sure, for sure, and that's what I've learned too. And because you guys are more consultative selling, there's a difference between a person selling a vehicle to you, or a car, piece of clothing, versus a
Mhm.
person that's selling a solution that is a
Mhm.
multi-monthly recurring revenue in the upwards of
Mhm.
millions of dollars. There is a
Right.
certain way that you approach consultative selling, and I've learned
Right.
exactly. I've learned in my own different schools, not nearly as prestigious as IBM,
Mhm.
in my field as well, because I'm in tech sales as well myself.
Mhm.
But I've learned exactly the same thing, where you have to, when people are making, and there's multiple stakeholders. It's not just one
Yeah.
person. So
Exactly.
the objective is to get buy-in from that person, so they can champion the solution to other organizations that are touching that solution,
Mhm.
because there are multiple people when you're talking about an enterprise level that are
Mhm.
affected by the decision, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you want to make sure that you have all the right people in the room when you have those conversations too. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. And
Yeah.
this is, guys, when you get into this level of high level performance, and you are a high performer like Aaron and like myself, who have, I got trophies. I can go grab them for you guys. He's look at it. Look at these things in the back of his. We are high performing sales professionals and just tech professionals in general. And Aaron's been in C for quite some time and has been very successful in every single role that he's been in, and vice versa. So these are the type of conversations. These are the type of small points that you guys have to keep in mind, and even things that you can apply in your daily life, right? If someone
Mhm.
tells you you're trying to talk, we both have ladies in our lives, and they may have a different perspective of something. You validate how they feel. Oh, I totally understand what you're saying. I get it. What
Mhm.
you're saying makes a lot of sense. How? And then you hit them with the, well, based off what you just told me, is that more clear, or what do you think about that? What's your opinion on that?
Mhm.
Right? And we both. I'm assuming we both have used these as well in everyday life, right?
Yeah, yeah. I feel like being able to handle conflict of any kind with any person is a skill, and like any skill, it takes practice, right? It takes patience, and it takes the dedication to getting things right. And it won't always be right. Right? It'll sometimes be uncomfortable, and it'll sometimes take you back to like, okay, I don't even want to deal with this. Like, I changed my mind. It's not important to me. But if you're really committed to something, you'll keep at it, and keep trying. So, yeah, there's a book up here called Getting to Yes. Highly
Yeah.
recommend. It was something that was provided to us in IBM Global Sales School, and I also got another book from one of my classes in grad school, and I was like, oh, I already have one, but I'll keep it. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I'm gonna grab. I think I have this book that I was a really big fan of personally.
Mhm.
Let's see. Well, I don't have to grab it. I got a whole library right next to me. But Never
Yeah.
Split the Difference is one of my favorite books. by
Yeah.
Chris Voss.
Mhm.
You have How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
There's different frameworks as well. BANT. You can learn how to do BANT. Different things that you can learn
Mhm.
in methodologies, right? That we can
Right.
learn.
Right.
So I agree with you
Mhm.
100%. Another book too that I love is called I think it's called something to do with it's literally one of the greatest books I've ever read. It was written in the 1920s. I'll get back to you guys. I'll put it
Yeah.
in the link so you guys can look into it. But it's a really good book about not giving up and having the perseverance to keep pushing forward. So great. So you're developing these skills where you're finding yourselves. Talk
Mhm.
about in business school. Did they cover? Because I'm an image consultant, right? The whole page is
Mhm.
this whole YouTube page is about sartorials, the soul sartorials,
Mhm.
right? Talk about the presentation, not just from a presentation clothing, but also communication presentation. What are some things that you've learned, the small details about presentation communication that you learned in business school and how that's helped you as you moved your way up the ladder?
Yeah. There's the verbal, there's the nonverbal. I think for the verbal side, I tend to still practice it, and I don't get it right all the time. Sometimes I use filler words and say or like or any of those things, right? And so I try to catch myself when I'm talking about something either I'm uncomfortable talking about or something that I may not know a lot about. And so that's usually when I end up using some filler words. But I would say that's the communication from a verbal standpoint plays a huge role in how people listen to you, how they receive you, and understand the topic that you're discussing, right? So that's an important part. And then it's the nonverbal as well, sitting up straight and with the authenticity that you care about the topic that someone's covering, being able to be honest with your nonverbal communication, and obviously like folding arms and stuff like that. Like I was taught from an early age, like not to put my hands in my pockets for at certain occasions, and not folding my arms because it can give off a closed off vibe, and different cultures have different nonverbal cues that people pick up on. But and it can be challenging for a lot of people to either manage that and also understand and pick up on if someone really is engaged with the topic that they're covering. So yeah.
For sure. And then we're going to fast forward. So you get your first, talk about your first promotion with IBM because you were promoted. You went from one role to another. Talk about that, and then we'll get into the Microsoft, and then we want to leave everyone with a positive note of how they can be high performing guys and the mentality is necessary because literally you're seeing the embodiment of it in Aaron here. So talk about that first promotion, what it took to get to that point.
Yeah. The first promotion. So a lot of my moves in IBM, like if you ever look at my LinkedIn, you'll see like 5 different positions in 3 years. But a lot of that is because, I would have a meeting with another team within IBM, and they would have a need for someone to fill a certain role. And so I would move over to that team. Just my first 2 managers in IBM, they both were good friends. And so they were like, oh, I'm going to steal Aaron. Like at one dinner I was at, they were like, I'm going to steal Aaron and put him on my team. And then he actually did.
Yeah.
And so I'm still very close with him. He actually moved over to Microsoft the
Oh,
same
no.
time I
It's
did.
serious
So
pipeline. Literally, it's like a
yeah.
pipeline thing. Yeah.
Yep. So that happens a lot where, one team sees somebody who's a high performer, has done really great work and wants them to move over on that team. And so I was on the Watson and Cloud Platform team. Now it's called Watson X.
Yeah.
But my team got cut, and that's why I moved over to Microsoft. But that same manager, looked out for me and let me know before the team got cut. He was like, just, a word to you, like we're not going to be around for much longer. And so you might want to start looking at either a role inside of IBM or on another team, or another company, sorry. And so I did exactly that. I took his advice, and that's when I got a phone call from the IBM security team, and they had a role to fill. And so I ended up ended up taking that role for about 2 months, and that was kind of where I jumped up a level by switching to that team. But that's when I also got a call from Microsoft, because I did apply to a role at Microsoft that was outside my comfort zone. It was super technical, but I looked at it as, this is an opportunity, right? This is an opportunity to work at another company that's also doing great things, and who knows where this will lead. And I first said no to Microsoft. I said, no, I just joined this new job. It's only 2 months in. That would be kind of messed up to leave so soon. And then they came back with, would you like to negotiate? And I was like, okay, sure. So I got to negotiate my offer coming into Microsoft. And I didn't know this at the time, but you can negotiate your offer going into any role. And a lot of people, especially, people of color, we don't usually ask for what we want.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. And it's so important to ask for what you want, because the first offer that they're going to give you is not going to be what you want. And it's also not going to be what they think you would want. So they're expecting you to come back with another offer, or to say, this is really what I was looking for. Is there any leeway here? And there's nothing wrong with asking that. Yeah.
For sure. Let's unpack that. Okay. I love the fact that you talk about this, especially when you're a younger professional. You're like, hey man, I got this opportunity, but I'm terrified. And it's like, you went to business school, you know the art of negotiation as well. You know how to talk and word things, based off my experience, I feel that, you know how to word things. You know the cool stuff, right? But it's still intimidating in practice, right? Talk about the negotiation process. And again, we're not going to get into a specific number, right? But was this a situation, because at the end of the day, we want to empower specifically young men. And also we happen to be we got a little bit of color here, guys. It's not the filters. This is real. This ain't AI. We brown. Okay. There's different. I'm a little bit different tone. I'm a little bit more pistachio, but and he's a little bit different, but so talk about that. When did you, because a lot of guys, they hear the word six figures and high performer. And it's like these words that you throw out in the air, but it's not real. Now, me and you are both firmly in our 30s, okay? I think I'm 35. Are you 35 as well?
I'll be 34 next month.
Yeah. 34. Okay, cool. 34 is coming. So we're firmly in our 30s, okay? So how long did it take you from business school to getting to your first six figures? We're not talking about the number in the total, but how long from putting all this work to like, oh, I'm making some money. Like I could afford some Chipotle every now and again.
Right. So 2016, 2017, around then is when I hit the six-figure mark for the first time. Yeah.
And now we're in 2026.
Yeah.
So talk about that. Was that because, especially you growing up in this environment, you putting in the effort, younger situation where the expectations, people were like, oh, put them in this. You're like, nah. Dad's like, no way. We're gonna do this, and put you in the right track. How did it feel though? Talk about it, because for me, when I made my first six figures, dude, I literally looked at the paycheck. I was like, this is insane. This is phenomenal. The amount of snacks and concerts that you can go to, or I even have a sword over here. You guys can't see it. I just got into really random things, but the type of self-investment that you can put in yourself is crazy. Right. So talk about it. How did it feel? You see six figures on your paycheck. What did it feel like? Explain that to someone who's never experienced that.
Yeah. It was just kind of validating, I would say, to where I was like, all right, I'm on the right track. Like I'm, worthy of, being paid a well-paying job, right? Like I'm in a position where I can do, something really, really good with my life. I can, pay for the things that I want to pay for, and I can move forward with the things I want to do. And so, yeah, it was just it was a good feeling. I wouldn't say like money is everything. I would say most cases it's important that you get paid fairly, but also get what you want, right? Like get what you want in the sense of work-life balance, get what you want in the sense of, career growth opportunities and things like that. So I was doing the work that I wanted to do. I was working in AI, cognitive and cloud, working in very new technologies, right? That are revolutionizing all businesses. And so being a part of that meant a lot to me too. And just getting paid was an extra bonus to it, right? And even for the negotiation to come to Microsoft, I had a good deal at IBM, and the first offer was actually in line with what my opportunity was
Oh,
in IBM. It's just I had uncapped commission at
oh
IBM, but no
wow.
stock. Yeah, and so I didn't have stock options. And so then when I got the offer from Microsoft, it was stock, bonus, and base pay. And so I said, okay, maybe there's something I can do with the base. Sorry, maybe there's something I can do with the stock and the base pay. Not much I can do with the bonus. That kind of comes how it comes. But by negotiating that piece, and focusing on that, I was able to get a compelling offer where, get into Microsoft early. I think it was 117 a share,
Oh
and
wow.
now what is it, like near 500 a share?
Wow.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
if you think
Lot
about
of,
the trajectory, right, and then you get stock every year on top of that, and I've been at Microsoft for almost 7 years, it was a good decision, right?
for
So,
sure. How many
yeah.
how many offers how many times did you have to go back with offers? Was it once? Was it twice? Was it three times a lady? How many times did you?
No, so from my negotiations class at University of Washington, they that professor told me 3 times by the third offer you should have a deal.
Okay.
I only went to two.
Oh,
So I got the first offer, and then I got the second offer, and then I accepted the second. And
now from
so, yeah, it worked out.
so did you when they sent the second offer? Did you wait 30 minutes? Did you wait a day? Did you wait a week? What did you do? Because you want to get leverage. You want them to sweat a little bit, right?
Yeah, I actually talked to another colleague of mine, uh, another black dude from IBM who ended up going over to Microsoft like a month before I did.
Oh wow. Okay.
And I asked him, he was also in the IBM Summit program with me, and I asked him, I said, what helped you in making your decision to leave? And I've been following his pathway too, because he's
Okay.
also at Microsoft still, but he's had multiple roles in Microsoft, and I think he only stays in a role for maybe 1 to 2 years.
Yeah.
And he's done that consistently, and now he's at a really high level. He's director level, and so yeah, I look at that and I'm just like, okay, he's he's on something that I need to pay attention to, because that's kind of what I want. I want to be able to make my own choices and pave my own way. And so yeah, I asked him, and he just said, it's a better opportunity here. It's a great company. They have a lot of compensation benefits and health benefits and all these other things. And so he just said, it looks like a stronger pathway forward to go this route. And so
Yeah.
I said, all right, well, this is a tough conversation I need to have with my current manager at IBM, because he just vouched for me. He opened up this role for me, and now I need to tell him I'm leaving after 2 months.
Not easy.
And so it was a difficult conversation, but that difficult conversation led me to a team that was probably one of the best teams that I've ever been on. And I was on that team for about 6 years before I got in this role that I'm currently in. But
Promotion.
yeah, thanks. Yeah.
So I love that the theme of it is always being open to different opportunities, looking at where's the business heading, what are they focusing on as an organization, where are the funds and the focus going, right? And putting
Mhm.
yourself in a situation maybe unfamiliar, but saying, hey, what's the worst that can happen? Add to your resume, right? It'll make you
Mhm.
more. It'll make you more well-rounded. I love that
Mhm.
mentality. I love that thought process, man. No doubt. So as we wrap up here, if you were to inspire another young, high-performing man who's in tech, just like yourself, he's maybe they say he gets out of college, he's 22, 23 years old, and he's like, man, I just don't. What would you give him as advice in terms of how to stay the ship? Because things are always rapidly changing. But what is the thing? Because and with your roles, you always, as you said, you're always putting yourself on different teams. You have consistently one upped yourself in one way or another. Is there a mantra that you have? What is your ultimate mentality or philosophy?
Yeah, there's a lot of mantras for different times, but I would say, people want to hire someone who's authentic and passionate,
Yes.
right? So you also have to know what you're doing. So, there's that component, but you'd be surprised how far not knowing something, but being passionate, driven, and authentic can take you,
Yeah.
right? That people can't really recreate that. authenticity is just authenticity. You can't really fake it, right? You can learn something, you can learn information, you can skill up on something and practice it, and that can get you better to, that higher level. But the passion can't be faked. You have to really feel it. And so I would say do what you're passionate about. Focus on, what really lights a fire in you, and the opportunities will fall in front of you. They'll just lay themselves in front of you. You'll get a phone call from somebody you haven't talked to in years, or you'll, get that LinkedIn message from somebody who, you've never met. And so those opportunities will just come, and you have to be ready to pivot, ready to change, ready to be uncomfortable, and ready to learn something new all the time. And I would say that that's the best, advice I could give anybody who's, looking in either tech or any industry, really. Like, if you're looking to, be successful, like it takes a level of humility, it takes a level of vulnerability, and you have to be passionate.
Yeah, and I love that about you, man. You literally, we said off camera, you're always getting new certifications. You're always upskilling, and same thing with me, guys. You're going to, in the world we live in. Excuse me. You no longer can just be at a role for 30 years. It just does not exist, folks. I'm sorry. And if you really want to be successful, you have to understand that it's constant change. It is constant new things that you have to learn. There's constant new ways to do things. But look at it as almost like a superpower. You're adding to your repertoire. So when something pops up, oh, I've experienced it. I'm ready to go. Think about it like you're adding the stones, like
Marvel, the Marvel movies, Infinity Stones, yeah.
You literally have to. And if you want to be a high performing person in 2025 on, the level of upskilling and the level of skill set changes and things, you're going to have to do it. And if you haven't gotten the AI certification, there's Microsoft Copilot Essentials. I have that. There's also Microsoft Essentials through LinkedIn. I have that. There's a whole wide variety of ways that you can do it. So we are both. Aaron's way more advanced than what he does, because I think your roles are way more technical than what I do. But I have done the exact same thing. And literally, like even Aaron said, he looked at somebody who was a forerunner in front of him, and he kind of watched kind of his path and said, you know what, I want to kind of do some of those things. I want to get paid that level. Let me watch and kind of pay attention. Get a bookmark of 2 or 3 guys that you really admire in their career journey. Look at their career journeys and say, okay, they're doing this, this, and this. And literally, it's almost like a script that you can follow. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, and you can, mentorship is huge, right? Like, some people may not be your mentor for long, but there's always someone to learn from, right? And you want to position yourself and be around and nurture that network if there's people that, you see going a similar route that you want to go on. Pick their brain, sit down for coffee or an interview or anything. Like, I've had so many people from former IBM colleagues in global sales school, who just said, hey, I just noticed you live in Washington, I'm also in Seattle, like, let's sit down for coffee and let me pick your brain. Like, that's something that can go a long way, because it might lead you to a new opportunity where they know about a position that needs being filled, and you might be the right candidate for it. So always be open to leaning on your network and connecting with people. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to expand my network and help out people. I have college, graduates and recent grads always reaching out, and I'm here to help. So I try to help them as best as I can, give recommendations. So feel free to reach out.
For sure, guys. And that's why I love Aaron. He's a genuine person. He's been literally the coolest dude since all the way before we had, streaming services. So we've been cool. He's been a good dude since when 24-inch rims was the thing. Okay.
That's right.
He's always been consistently a good guy, very down to earth. He's a person that I respect morally. A person that I respect the way he handles his life. He's married. He's very diligent. He's orderly. He's creative. He does photography. All these different things that make him this unique, interesting human being that we see in a high performer. High performers aren't always these jerks and who are just rude and you got to be a butthole and all this stuff. No, you can be a nice, reasonable, down to earth person, right? Yeah. And so that's why we've been cool for over a decade. We went to high school back before the 2010s. Okay, so. So guys, so there's some, so and if you build those relationships even in 2025, 2026, you can have the situation where he was very gracious with his time. So, folks, I'll put his LinkedIn in the comments. He's a great person to talk to. And again, this whole entire episode is to inspire you to be the best version of yourself, to push yourself to the next level, put yourself in unfamiliar situations, and to advocate for yourself. Any final words, Aaron?
Just want to say thanks for doing this. You're doing great work. It's good to see people who are out there and trying to advocate for others, and just really appreciate the time and also the questions. I'm not asked these questions all the time, so it's nice to talk about it.
Awesome, guys. And please forgive me, guys. I'm always going to be dealing with sinus issues. It's the winter time. So I'll sound like, one day I'll sound good. One day I'll sound like Snuffleupagus. Please bear with me. I appreciate you guys. We look forward to doing more episodes with high performers, successful, verifying successful people. Proof is in the pudding, folks. And so we'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Awesome. So let's end.